The Malaysian tourism sector is expecting a surge in demand for the fourth quarter of this year, after it recorded 4.5 million tourist arrivals in the first quarter, indicating a positive development in the country's tourism industry. The nation is predicted to welcome at least 18 million international tourist arrivals this year to surpass the initial target of 16.1 million arrivals. Now, what can the industry do to diversify its offerings to attract a broader range of tourists? I'm Zahir Kelvin Abdullah, and this is Money Matters. Hello there and welcome to Money Matters on your favorite channel right here on TV3. And we are also available on HD via Tonton. Well, today we have in the studios with us Nigel Wong, President of the Malaysian Association of Tour and Travel Agents, MATTA. Welcome to the program, Nigel.
Thanks, Kelvin.
Good to have you with us. Now, tourism has always been a very important contributor to the Malaysian economy. So, how would you rate the current health of the nation's tourism industry?
Well, Kelvin, I mean, as we all know, post-COVID, there's been a surge of demand for travel, and quite frankly, that's actually translated into actual tourist arrivals coming in. And I would say that the current state, as you put it, the health of the tourism industry is actually looking quite good. There's a bit on the uptake, and it's due to a number of reasons, and one of that is also the strengthening of the domestic tourism economy. So during the COVID period, people were encouraged to travel within our own borders, and that's wonderfully enough sparked an interest that we've never seen before in how Malaysians want to travel within their own country. And I think secondly also, besides the revenge travel phenomenon that happened last year, we have seen a leveling of that demand, but it's become a bit more predictable. We're now able to look at markets, how they're opening up. We're also able to more or less look at which market segments we want to target next, focus our promotional efforts, and then go for it.
Was it difficult to sort of change your promotional efforts because of COVID? I mean, a lot of industries had to basically re-look at sort of reinventing themselves, so to speak.
Well, the tourism industry is no different. We've also had similar challenges to many of the other industries out there, and we've had to be very creative and innovative in the way we, number one, interpreted how the markets were going to change and how trends were going to change. And then after that, be creative about how we're going to tackle those changes. So yes, in answer to your question, we had to do quite a bit of creative thinking.
But looking at some of the tour operators, I mean, it's been reported in the media as well, that the smaller tour operators and travel agents were the ones that were badly affected.
I'd probably say that it was a bit of a mixed bag there. It really depends on the markets that you were targeting, what areas of tourism you were focusing on. For example, we had some really large travel agents, and they were actually very badly hit simply due to the overheads that they had to manage. And so they were very badly impacted, and they had to take drastic measures in order to survive. And after that, they had to take or put a lot more effort into, rehiring their talent that had left, putting money back in for promotions, and at the same time dealing with all the customer issues that cropped up during the pandemic itself. Now, for the smaller players, yes, we were also quite badly affected. Most of the smaller players tend to focus on very specific markets, and when everything dried up, it was really, really very difficult to, refocus. We didn't even know where to start. And yes, so the smaller businesses were very badly affected as well.
Right. Okay. Can we talk about medical tourism? Malaysia has emerged as a hub for medical tourism because of our world-class healthcare facilities and services. So visitors often come to Malaysia looking for this, treatments combined with leisure activities as well. So looking at its potential, what is the current level of cooperation between the travel industry and the medical profession?
Just late last year, the Malaysian Healthcare Tourism Council launched a program together with MATTA, and it was called the Health Facilitator Training Program. And in that program, travel agents were taught, how to market and sell the different sort of medical services that were available in Malaysia. And so that was basically the beginning, I believe, of a more concerted effort, to help tourism players access markets that were interested in medical services and related products. And so what we think will happen and what we hope will happen is that this very lucrative product will continue to expand. MATTA itself is putting a lot of effort into promoting healthcare tourism, and we believe that there will be an increase in demand simply because Malaysia not only has that world-class facility, but it's also a very friendly climate. It's a very easy, accessible destination, when it comes to having these treatments done and then the recuperation that needs to follow afterwards.
Right. But we're also looking at where medical tourism is concerned. We're also looking at competing with other countries like Thailand and Singapore as well. What is our advantage here? Is it the fact that our ringgit is low?
That would be one of the obvious advantages. And of course, the fact that even with us or tourists paying a lower amount of money, they're still going to be getting that same class, if not even better, sort of medical services, which Malaysia is, really prepared to offer. Mm-hmm. But I think on top of that, Malaysia's price point in the region is also fairly attractive. Yes, we may not be as low as, say, Thailand, at certain points in time, but we're certainly not much higher than Singapore. So overall, the cost-value ratio is very, very attractive.
Okay, we've just got to go for our first commercial break, so stay with us. We're talking to Nigel Wong, the president of MATTA. Welcome back to Money Matters. We're talking to Nigel Wong, the president of MATTA. Now, Nigel, ecotourism, very important in Malaysia as well. As global awareness of environmental issues grows, our ecotourism sector is gaining prominence, of course. Now, what can the travel sector do to promote sustainable tourism practices and also protect the country's diverse ecosystem?
Ecotourism, as you rightly mentioned, is one of the key attractions in Malaysia, and actually even long before this whole issue of sustainability became a major, subject. Malaysians or Malaysian businesses or those that were involved in ecotourism were already very, very aware of the need to not just conserve and preserve, but translate that preservation and conservation to something that was more sustainable. And so while we still need a bit of work, with the rest of the attractions that are in Malaysia, we've actually got a fairly firm foundation understanding of what we need to do. I suppose in terms of moving forward, education is going to be key. While we have all these natural attractions, we need to ensure that the caretakers of these attractions understand the need to not only protect the resources, but to do in such a way so that the local communities are going to benefit and be incentivized for doing so. And then you've got the travel agents, for example, and those of us that are actually selling the countries and the products. They need to understand how to not only choose the right products to support, but also to ensure that the way we do it actually also contributes to the conservation and preservation efforts of the communities that are already doing it.
Right. So looking at the attractions that we can offer in Malaysia as compared to our other ASEAN neighbours, do you think we should focus more on this type of tourism?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, there's been a trend worldwide where people are now looking for green adventures, to coin it loosely, and that goes from everything to wildlife tourism to adventure tourism. And we have a lot of products that have yet to be discovered or developed, so we have a wealth, of products that we haven't offered to the world yet. And so, on that note, yes, we are going to basically have to find ways, to promote some of these products that we have. And like I said before, in the process, teach people how to manage and to grow these attractions.
Right. Because some of these eco-tourism places, to use that word, would obviously tie in with infrastructure development, obviously, because some places would be not so easily accessible like how the Mulu caves were before. So looking at infrastructure development, Malaysia has invested in infrastructure development, including transportation networks, hotels and resorts to accommodate the growing number of tourists. So the expansion of airports and public transportation, of course, has made travel more accessible to people, even like you mentioned just now, even to the locals. But is this enough, or are there any areas that you think can be looked at to further promote this industry?
I would say that we have to start from accessibility as a key point, because of course if you can't get to the destination, it becomes too expensive. Then it's going to be very hard to ensure its sustainability, right? So I think what you mentioned there is, if you hit the nail right on the head, we're going to have to start by making these attractions more accessible to people, and from there we can go on towards expanding, how these attractions can be further developed without destroying the environment they're in or disrupting the lives of the local communities. So we need to start from there.
Can we move on to digital tourism? Because this is now getting to be a very important topic. Like many other countries, Malaysia is leveraging on technology and social media, of course, to promote tourism. Online platforms and apps provide information and booking options, making it easy for tourists to sort of plan their vacations. How has this area played a significant role in boosting the industry?
Well, digital is obviously the way to go. Our reach has been expanded far beyond the imagination of traditional media, and so there is no denying that digital adoption in the tourism industry is going to be key. I suppose now the main thing here is to see how industry stakeholders are able to tap into digital resources And it's not just about having a website or going onto an OTA, for example. There are companies that are developing unique apps designed to complement their products. There are companies that are looking at content-based apps or websites, that promote tourism. We are looking at the financial sector. It's very important that the financial sector advance to the point where we as stakeholders are able to access markets and take payments simply because there's so much potential in being able to do so. So the scope is very wide.
Okay, Nigel, hold that thought. We've just got to go for our final commercial break. Stay with us. We're talking to Nigel Wong, the president of MATTA. Thank you for staying with us on Money Matters. Now, Nigel, can we talk about the challenges of overtourism? Some popular destinations in Malaysia, like Langkawi and Penang, have faced issues related to overtourism, including overcrowding and, of course, as you mentioned earlier as well, strain on local resources. So what type of sustainable tourism practices you think can be put in place to address these challenges?
So I think if we look at over-tourism, it's not just in Langkawi or in Penang. As you mentioned earlier on, some of the islands have that problem as well. Some of these problems can be avoided, of course, as we discussed earlier on, about changing the way we look at our products. And today, most people are quite aware, that sustainable tourism matters. It's part of the principles of travel, and they're also willing to pay higher prices for this. And so that shift, as we mentioned, should be something that we take in order to help manage the situation. The other thing to do also is to start opening up other attractions that are readily available across the country. And that way we give people options. We don't force them to congregate in one area for too long or to overstay. They can have options to visit the rest of the country, spread it out a little. That's not damaging. What it does actually, it makes the country even more attractive.
It's interesting that you said changing your products, because can I sort of backtrack a little bit? When you talk about digital tourism earlier just now, you also mentioned that you had to sort of reinvent yourself. So with everyone going online and booking their vacations and their travels on apps, has it sort of hurt MATTA in any way?
I would say it has had impact on the way we do business traditionally, but the irony of it is that travel agents, especially after coming through COVID-19, have learned to be extremely resilient and very creative in what they do. And we actually see among some of our MATTA members, they have started to look at digital tourism not just as a way to compensate for a lack, but actually to help them penetrate new markets, bring new products to market, and actually capture a different piece of market share. So digital tourism will sting, all right? Digital will sting a little bit, but the travel industry will adapt, and it will adapt well.
Yeah, because in the long run, it's something that will benefit them in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, let's look at the government initiatives now. The government has implemented various initiatives, of course, to support the tourism industry, including financial assistance packages and marketing campaigns to attract domestic tourists. So, in your opinion, what is the most crucial assistance that has already been given by the government?
Maybe just to put things in context, over the last couple of years, the government has tried a few things. They've introduced an incentive to domestic travellers so that they would be incentivized to buy online and then basically travel domestically. And then when borders opened up, they introduced the Gamelan Fund and one other fund that was targeted at culture. And that was actually basically used as a matching grant to help industry players go overseas to promote products or to organize cultural tourism events. Those grants are extremely important and very, very useful. And I would probably venture to say that moving forward, leading up to 2026, we need these grants to continue and maybe even request for a bit of a upgrade, to the amount available in that pool for industry players to work with.
Right. So in this instance, are you engaging with the government? Because looking at the industry's expectations, especially in the upcoming budget, has this been informed to the government, so to speak?
Yes, we have had a couple of sessions with the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, the Ministry of Finance, and I believe many of the associations have already submitted their budget proposals. But what we can agree on in principle is that the budget for tourism needs to be much bigger. And that's basically so that the government and their initiatives and their projects, as well as the private sector stakeholders, are able to exponentially expand their reach in terms of promotions to the various markets that we're targeting.
Mm-hmm. So what's your wish list for budget 2024?
Well, maybe not to shock anybody, but we believe a small increase of up to $1 billion for tourism alone would be great for starters.
Right. So again, looking at what you've just mentioned, in terms of the grants, obviously this would fall into the employment of youths in the industry as well, because obviously during COVID, I'm sure, like you mentioned, a lot of the tour operators were badly hit. So looking forward, how do you think that we can gain the momentum to get people involved again in employment for the tourism industry?
I think in terms of talent acquisition or talent development, we need to look at the tourism industry in a slightly different light. Yes, the professionals that we had may have moved on to other industries. Some have come back, of course. But what we really, really need is to have new blood, fresh ideas in the industry. I mean, the current batch of millennials, for example, or the younger workers, they see things quite differently from what we do. And we need to harness that potential and that creativity, absorb that into the current tourism scenario, and then let that take its course. Let Malaysian tourism, just naturally evolve into what it should be today.
Are you think we're on the right track?
I think we have started on the right track, and if I would venture to say that all the associations and the government, we need to place a lot more emphasis on this sort of talent development.
Right. So can we look at future prospects? Of course, the future of Malaysia's tourism industry is obviously closely tied to global travel trends and economic conditions. Sustainable and responsible tourism practices will likely continue to be emphasized, as you mentioned just now. What do you suggest that the industry can do to diversify its offerings to attract a broader range of tourists?
Well, aside from sustainable tourism, I think what we need to do is look at the way we communicate, what Malaysia as a destination has to offer. And while we've got great campaigns running online, we've got great songs, and people know Malaysia very well for its ecotourism, we need to show people that are different facets to Malaysia. And that is what people are looking for today, lots of choice, diversity, excitement, options. And so I believe if we are able to look at the way we are branding Malaysia, target different markets with different messages, we'll be able to reach a wider range, a bigger audience than we would if we were to just do a broad-based kind of campaign.
Right. Nigel, thank you very much for appearing on Money Matters. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
Pleasure.
Well, that's it for Money Matters today. If you missed the earlier part of this episode, you can also catch it up on Tonton. For more money insights at MATTA, be sure to join us next week, same time, right here on TV3. I'm Zahir Kelvinong Abdullah. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.